Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for spending your lunchtime on the East Coast with us today. I'm Varun Shriram with Generation UCAN and thrilled to be joined by the newest member of the UCAN family, registered dietitian Karin Hosenfeld. Karin, welcome to UCAN.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Barn. I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome, Karin. Well, it's great to have you join our team and share your knowledge both with us and with the community. We really looking forward to hearing all of your insights, and we're going to get into a little bit of your background here in just a second. But want to welcome everybody who's joining us today to learn more about how to use UCAN to improve your energy throughout the day. It's a topic that's been getting a lot of interest for us as more and more people are finding different ways to integrate the UCAN products as a tool to maintain steady energy levels throughout their workday, to give them the energy to exercise during the week. So, we thought no better person than Karin, who has a wealth of experience working with all different types of athletes of all different ages, frankly. No better person than Karin to lend her insight on this topic that's been getting a lot of interest from a lot of folks. So with that, Karin, wanted to give you a chance to tell folks a little bit about yourself, how you got started in the nutrition world, and really what ultimately brought you to UCAN.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Barn. I'm in the Dallas area, and I have had a private practice in this area for the past 12 years prior to coming on with UCAN at the beginning of February. And I have had a chance over those past 12 years to work with every kind of active person imaginable, from 6-year-old competitive swimmers to 65-year-old masters athletes that are doing ultra endurance marathons and triathlons, et cetera, for fun on every weekend, and just active people in general. And what I've noticed over that time is, even if you're talking about a high-level athlete or just a regular person like you and I, or just trying to make it through our day, energy levels are always a problem. People always ask me, why am I so tired? How do I get my energy levels up? So I'm really excited to be talking about this today, so that these attendees, you guys out there that are just trying to get through your work day as it would be, how do you find out how to get more energy? So hopefully the tools that I can bring you will help with that.
And speaking of energy, Karin, we do have a very exciting announcement for folks that are here on the call today. We're coming up just in the very near future. We're about to launch a brand new UCAN product that's going to really change the way you think about your protein shake. So right now we have a variety of different UCAN formulations in powder form, but the new UCAN product that's coming up in the pipeline over the next few months is going to be a higher protein UCAN formulation that also features the UCAN superstarch carbohydrate. So 20 grams of protein, 15 grams of superstarch. This is something that you can really use in replacement of your normal morning protein shake that really will hold a lot of benefits. And Karin, for you as a dietitian, when you heard about this new UCAN formulation that's coming out in the very near future, what were your thoughts?
Well, I certainly can't wait for the product, because I, like many people, have used UCAN, and this is one of the topics that we'll discuss today. So let's just jump right in and give some people some content on that. When I would wake up in the morning, I think most people are busy people. They're like me. I've got to get my kids up. I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. I'm getting them up, getting their breakfast, lunch, running out the door. I don't have time to make a 4-course breakfast for myself, though I would love to. And it's so great that I can grab a scoop of UCAN, mix it with a protein powder, and in a shaker blender bottle, and just be out the door. And it'll hold me for about 3 hours of just beautiful, steady energy until, late morning or lunchtime comes around. And that's what this product will do, because it'll be all right there together. So no worrying about like, oh, do I have enough protein powder around with me? It'll be a combined product. So this is something that us dietitians, we dream of, like, how can we make it easier for people? So this definitely will.
And Karin, I want to perhaps dive a little bit more specifically in a couple of minutes into kind of the why behind adding a scoop of UCAN or pairing UCAN with protein, kind of the why behind what makes that such a advantageous, kind of combination to use compared to just plain protein. But before we get a little bit more specific there, for you personally, what was your introduction to UCAN? I mean, what piqued your interest about the product, or why did you even think it was something that was applicable for you?
Yeah, for sure. I work with all different athletes, as I mentioned, and I've worked with professional, collegiate, Olympic, and high school athletes as the majority of my practice. These are people that, their steady energy is extremely important, as is the rest of our population, but they're also trying to control body fat, just in general perform better during their workouts. And so I'm always, as a sports dietitian, looking for products out there that can, and we call them a supplement for a reason. They supplement a good diet. So I will say that, and it's important as a dietitian that you hear it from me. You can't out-supplement a poor diet. If your diet isn't good overall in general, then you probably should seek out the help of a dietitian to help you with that. And on top of that, products like these, specifically UCAN, when I heard about it and it hadn't even been released on the market for dietitians or the general public to purchase, I was already excited the things that I was hearing about it. So when it did come out on the market, I was one of the first people to say, and raise my hand and say, I want to try it because it sounds amazing. And that was about 6.5, 7 years ago. And since then, I recommend UCAN almost on a daily basis to people. There's very few people out there from children on up that I don't recommend UCAN for.
And Karin, the interesting thing when you were talking about hearing about UCAN as we look on the screen at some of the research behind UCAN, the unique feature and characteristic of UCAN is the superstarch, the carbohydrate, which is the key ingredient in UCAN products, and what's completely unique to UCAN products. And basically why the superstarch is so special and so different than your traditional higher glycemic, fast-acting carbohydrates is because of the rate at which it enters your system. So the blue line that we're seeing on the screen is maltodextrin, which is a common complex carbohydrate found in a lot of sports nutrition products. You see that big spike and drop in your blood sugar or your energy levels, whereas with the superstarch, it's much more even and steady. And for any of you guys that have tried UCAN before, that even and steady feeling can really be explained by what you're seeing on the graph. And for us, Karin, what was interesting is when we came on the market, people who saw this red line, and perhaps by virtue of the athletes that were first using UCAN, it very much started in the endurance space. Marathon runners, triathletes who were saying, hey, I'm going to be exercising for this long duration of time, so that's that red line, basically that several hours of steadiness is something I want. Now, you as a dietitian perhaps had a different understanding of the significance of steady blood sugar, not just for endurance athletes, but for everyday people. How did you make the connection that, what UCAN was providing wasn't just something that a triathlete or a marathon runner would want, but was something that you could actually implement both for yourself and for your clients just throughout the day?
Yeah, for sure. And, we see, as dietitians, we need to see the science. Like, for us, that's important for us to be able to recommend a product at all. The science has to be there. So when I first started using UCAN myself, you just start thinking, wow, this is really giving me great energy. I'm having amazing workouts. Everybody should know about this, but how else can I use it? So I was finding there were different times that I could use it at that period in my life. I was taking a lot of group fitness classes. It could have been something like a kickboxing class, or I was a member of one of those boxing gyms. And I was finding it wasn't just for my long runs or my 40-mile bike rides that I was using UCAN for. It's, hey, I'm not going to actually do any kind of activity without UCAN, because it just, the crazy thing is, if you try it for about a week, if you're listening to this and you haven't tried it, but you're thinking, well, let me try it once and see if that helps, I would recommend trying it for a week and then going off of it for a week and seeing what the difference is. Because for me, I use it every day, and I don't want to know what the difference is anymore, because I can really, really feel it when I don't use it.
Just overall, in terms of blood sugar stabilization and kind of the core principle that UCAN promotes, which is the stabilization of blood sugar. In your seat as a dietitian, I mean, how important is regulating blood sugar? I think perhaps, I don't know if many people fall into this category, but for myself, for example, 5 or 6 years ago, before being deeply involved with UCAN, if I heard the term blood sugar, not, being in the nutrition world, I instantly said, okay, that's something that people with diabetes have to worry about. That's not something that, an active person has to worry about. But obviously, I've kind of been awakened as I've learned more and more about this. As a dietitian, how important is it for everyone to be aware and be trying to control their blood sugar, and how come? Why do we want to?
When people come to me and they complain of fatigue in the afternoon or kind of that crash after lunch, it doesn't matter. There's some people who might eat too much for lunch and then be in that kind of food coma. You're at work, you can barely get by. And then in the afternoon, you have a really bad crash. Or people who are dieting and they're telling me, gosh, I'm eating a salad at lunch and then I just don't have the energy to make it through the day. Is it bad to eat a salad? And these are practical things. When I look at that, what I translate that into is exactly what you're saying. It's a blood sugar issue. How is your blood sugar responding to that afternoon kind of crash that we all have around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon? If you go and you hang out outside of Starbucks, you will see, if you happen to have one of those drive-through Starbucks or inside, it is packed with people. In the afternoon, they are trying to make it past that 3 or 4 o'clock afternoon window of time. Especially, I speak for busy moms, myself. Now we have to go get the kids, make dinner, get them to bed. It's like one of our busiest times of the day, and we need some energy to make it through. But it's not the best placement of energy repletion to be having caffeine as kind of a band-aid for that. We want to look for how do we get steady energy. And that's why one of the recommendations that I have for UCAN, if you haven't used it yet, and one of my practical tips is to use it as a snack between meals. We're talking about after lunch, about an hour, hour and a half after lunch, before you really start to feel that fatigue set in. You can have a scoop of UCAN, 90 calories. It's slow released carbohydrates that acts like a fiber that really regulates your blood sugar, and you'll feel so much better going into the evening hours and not feeling like you're going to eat the paint off the walls by the time you get home and you haven't even started cooking yet. It really helps to settle you down and settle your nerves down, and it's just a great source of energy.
So Karin, let's take maybe perhaps using yourself as an example, which might be pretty transferable to what you're also recommending to a lot of the clients that you've worked with in the past. But let's take an average day. How would you, what would you say, like, not necessarily that you're doing all of these every single day, but on an average day, how do you look at the opportunities to incorporate UCAN into your day based on what's going on?
It's also going to depend on what time you might be doing your workouts. So I have lots of people who wake up at 5 a.m. and they go for a 5:30 in the morning workout. If that's the case, a lot of the listeners that you have on will know, hey, I'm taking a scoop of UCAN alone before exercise, 30 minutes before exercise, and I feel great. I make it through my workout. I'm done with my workout. You can also use UCAN with protein, 20 grams of protein after your workout. That does the same thing as that line graph that you just showed in the last slide, which just helps to stabilize your blood sugar, but leaves you in a fat burning state and gives you stable energy. Yeah, so that's the one that we were talking about. This is going to happen after your workouts too, not just before your workouts. So you can do another scoop of UCAN, or you can just have your normal breakfast. Let's say you're already on, your way to the office or what have you, and you hopefully have a healthy breakfast with your 20 grams of protein after your workout. Maybe you have your workout before you go home from work, and if that's the case, that afternoon snack as a scoop of UCAN is a great alternative for that as well. If you're waking up in the morning like I do, and that's not when you have your workout for the day, then you could use it as a replacement for breakfast. So you might have a scoop of UCAN, scoop of protein powder. If you'd like to blend it up, you can blend it up with a healthy fat. So that might be an almond butter or no sugar added peanut butter, for example. But I do definitely want to point out that you don't want to use any other source of carbohydrate in that blended shake that you're doing along with the UCAN. Let the UCAN do its work on, like that graph, the line graph that you saw, because if you don't use it like that, and listen, there's been plenty of people that I've run into, they have great intentions, but they're using UCAN with another source of carbohydrate, like maltodextrin or, you know, an energy or sports drink, and it'll spike their blood sugar, and then people aren't really getting the results from UCAN that they're looking for, and it's just because they're not using it the way that it should be and it's meant to be used. So it is your source of carbohydrate. Put some protein in there, a healthy fat, like a nut butter, and blend it up, and you're good to go. And then another way that I use it, and I have used this for, oh my gosh, so many athletes that travel, professional athletes, international Olympic athletes, just your everyday people who are really, really struggling and trying hard to lose weight, for example, but they get to that point at the end of the day, and they've been so good all day, but the chocolates or the sweets or something's calling them at night, and they tell me, Karin, I cannot help myself. And it's not that they can't help themselves from the mindset perspective, it's that their body is looking for some source of blood sugar. And in this case, we can give a stable energy at night after dinner, about an hour after dinner. You can have one of our UCAN bars. And one of our little secret tips that we have is we like to take them out of the wrapper, just put them on a paper towel, stick it in the microwave for about 10 seconds. If you haven't done this, they are amazing. I had someone tell me this yesterday. I kind of have to stop myself from like eating 20 of them because they're very good. The cinnamon one tastes like a cinnamon roll when you heat it for 10 seconds in the microwave. It's an amazing, amazing thing. What that does for you at night is it helps you to cut down that craving for sugar that you're feeling, but also get you through the rest of the evening. And it's quite amazing when you really, when you take it and then you really realize, hey, I'm good to go. I don't need anything else, and I had my sweet. I would definitely try it if you haven't tried it before, if you're listening now.
And Karin, one of the things you were talking about there, as you were sharing a lot of great tips on the different ways to incorporate UCAN, is blending it with other ingredients and making it into a smoothie. So this is a popular kind of breakfast or dessert smoothie with a lot of great other things added to it that'll really promote both that satiety and that stable blood sugar. And in this recipe, we use the vanilla cream UCAN, but certainly it's interchangeable with our chocolate UCAN with protein as well. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, Karin, which I'm sure you've encountered, and perhaps people in the audience are wondering this too. You described the superstarch, the carbohydrate in UCAN earlier, as being more like a fiber or having some properties of a fiber. So, certain times when we're talking about adding a scoop of UCAN to your shakes throughout the day or using it in between meals, some people kind of get hung up on this notion of like, oh man, but I'm having 15 grams of carbs or 20 grams of carbs. Is this really what I want to be doing, as supplementation throughout the day? Why is it different when you're taking in a scoop of UCAN and getting, 15 to 20 grams of carbs that way versus, say, if you were taking, 15 to 20 grams of, fruit powder or something and putting it in your smoothie, which would be more like 15 to 20 grams of sugar?
Right. I want to answer that question, and then I want to come back to this really great slide we have here about, blending this all up and making a smoothie out of it, because there's some components here that you would use for different ways that you're using UCAN. So I definitely want to come back to that slide.
We'll leave this up here.
When we think about that spike that we showed on the line graph, you can get that spike with other carbohydrates that you're using. It depends on, of course, the amount, what size person you are. You might be a smaller woman, a bigger guy that's, weightlifting, bodybuilding. It just depends on, what, how many carbs you're eating at that time and how much your blood sugar spike is. So what I like to tell people instead, let's say I'm just having a conversation with you on the street and we don't have this chart in front of us with the line graph. What I like to explain about UCAN is it's a starch that is not like any other starch that you know of. So first we have to think outside the box. It acts more like a fiber. So if you can think of UCAN more as a fiber that slowly releases over time and gives steady energy, it's not like other carbohydrates that you're used to consuming. So when you see that it's a starch, or you see that there's carbohydrates listed on the label, it's true that it's, you know, carbohydrate source, but there aren't any other carbohydrate sources like this that can give you that sustained energy over 2 or 3 hours of time. It's just, it doesn't exist except for UCAN.
And you know, that was kind of one of the points that I've heard different people make. You know, there's a lot of things that in terms of carbohydrates or fibrous foods that don't spike your blood sugar or don't spike your insulin. You know, when you think of, I guess, like a cup of broccoli or a cup of raspberries, for example, like that might not elicit this same spike that we're seeing on the blue line. But what you described, Karin, and what I'll say again is what's so unique about the UCAN and the superstarch is not only that it doesn't cause the spike, but it also sustains you. So that end point, you basically, that your blood sugar is much more even, where you're not dipping. You know, whereas other things that, if I'm saying this correctly, whereas other things that don't cause a spike aren't going to sustain you as long. They're not going to give you that time release glucose over an extended period of time like the superstarch does. And you know, we had a question from the crowd that said, from Ryan, that says, mind blown. No, well, let me actually read up this question before I answer it. But Karin, why don't I have you get back to the point that you wanted to make on the shake as well? I'll get that slide back up there. So you had some comments on the UCAN shake and how to utilize it.
Yeah, and when we're talking about that line graph, I mean, there is maltodextrin on there. So that might be, you know, your sports drink or pre-workout that a lot of people might do. But let's just talk about real life. Like, what would spike your blood sugar like that? It's, you know, several servings of carbohydrates, and we're talking about simple carbs, things that might have sugar. I think a lot of us can relate. We might be hungry, and we have, you know, a piece of chocolate our coworker gave us, and when we do, of course, not at UCAN, we don't do that, but, we don't have chocolate laying around the office.
We have chocolate UCAN bars, right? That's what we have laying around.
I know, I love that place. But, you know, your coworker, you know, people have a jar of candies or whatever, and you have a couple because you're standing there talking, and later, half an hour later, you are either feeling hungry or you're feeling kind of junky, like, I just don't feel good. That's that kind of spike that you have, and then that crash afterwards. So this is what we're talking about, that sustained energy that UCAN doesn't have, that UCAN doesn't promote that spike. It promotes that longer acting, steady energy over time. So yeah, if we go back to the slide on the shake, what I want to point out is a couple of things. Number one, you said that for that half a banana in there, for example, that won't cause the kind of spike that we just saw on that other line graph. But I will add this. The time that I would do the half a banana or a quarter scoop of berries, for example, something that, and we're talking about carbohydrate sources now, something like that that's small that you could add to this blended shake just for some flavor, is I would recommend that before a workout, for example. And that might be the UCAN plus a banana and some protein, like your plain Greek yogurt and your peanut butter that is sugar-free, peanut butter, no sugar added, and that would be your pre-workout. Lots of people will do UCAN with greens. So if you're a person that loves to put in your own fresh greens or a scoop of greens that you buy at your health food store, you can do that as well. That's not an issue before a workout. If you're trying, though, to lose weight and you're specifically using it as a weight loss kind of meal replacement, then what I would recommend, and I typically do to my clients, is to do 1 scoop of UCAN, 1 scoop of protein powder, and then the nut butter that I mentioned that doesn't have any sugar added. So, and just kind of a plain, simple recipe like that. But if you're going to work out, certainly you can add in a small amount of other carbs as well, just to kind of keep you going, especially if you haven't eaten for a while. Like, let's say you get off of work at, 5 or 6 p.m. and you haven't eaten since noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Have a UCAN shake at like 3:34, and that should last you until your workout if you're going to do that before you get home.
And this the kind of what you're describing about UCAN really, I guess, to me, highlights the power of it. And we have a few endurance athletes here on the line that have a couple questions, more pertaining to the use of UCAN for long bouts of training. But I wanted to take a moment to say that it's really unique that the same product that is something that a triathlete could use to energize themselves for 8 to 10 hours of exercise is also something that a dietitian like Karin would say this is a great option to add to your everyday shakes, your daily shakes to stabilize your energy. Because really, if we look at the kind of the makeup of most endurance fuels on the market, I mean, they're all sugar and maltodextrin rich fuel sources, and there's certainly not anything you'd want to be using as part of your daily diet or in a smoothie first thing in the morning. So that really highlights kind of the broad application of UCAN, and I guess it comes back to the broad application of steady blood sugar. Everybody can benefit from keeping their blood sugar steady regardless of what their activity level is or what they're doing, and that again is primarily what UCAN promotes. So I know the focus here
Brian,
was,
can I add something to that? Because when you're an athlete and, like you said, you might be going multiple hours and this is your source of energy. That's fantastic. And that is really when we put UCAN to the test. When we test drive it and we see this is what it can do, this is what it's capable of, and it's absolutely mind-blowing. We had a runner out of Dallas that just broke her personal record in Tokyo this past weekend. She cut 8 minutes off of her PR. It was amazing, and she's doing it using UCAN. That's awesome. What I want to add to that, and what you're saying is, we're talking about everyday people too, because the rest of the day, even if we're talking about athletes or runners and endurance athletes, and even the fitness crowd that are using it for their CrossFit and their boxing and whatever, the rest of the other hours of the day, you're a regular person just like the rest of us. And how do you use UCAN and fit that into your life as well? We're talking about people that travel. First of all, I never go anywhere without packets of UCAN in a blender bottle, ever, anywhere. I go to long sports nutrition conferences and traveling all over the U.S. In 2014, I worked with the NFL Players Association, and we're constantly traveling. And I never left it up to chance at an airport and what they might have for me to eat. I always had my UCAN on board just in case, and I would take it at the most opportune times of the day when I just knew I wasn't going to get a break. I work with CEOs that, they're in meetings all day and don't have a break, or nurses who work in the ICU and they're standing for long periods. If you're using this for endurance activities or fitness activities, great. But I know that everyone listening probably has other people in their lives that are just really super busy. Maybe a truck driver, and this can help them out. It's how do we implement UCAN in our daily lives? So with that, let me answer your question that you said your endurance people had.
yeah, absolutely. And Karin, I wanted to add to what you were just saying. I mean, it's funny, like longevity, oftentimes maybe in the context of UCAN, we think of it in terms of endurance athletes. But I just saw this great video that was shared with me on Facebook yesterday of a surgeon, actually a doctor, who was talking about it. I'm going to post it on our Facebook page today, but it was a doctor basically talking about using UCAN to get through several hours of surgery, because he was doing back-to-back surgeries and he didn't have time to break for a meal. So when he has 3 minutes in between surgeries to get some fuel or nutrition in them, he's saying, instead of that cup of coffee, which isn't going to last them, that scoop of UCAN has really had an amazingly powerful effect. So it's I guess, there's endurance in sport, and then there's also endurance or long-lasting energy in the context of your everyday life.
If I had to pick a doctor with a shaky caffeine hand or a UCAN steady hand, I think you know which one I would pick for my surgeon.
No doubt. Well, let's answer. We've got about 10 minutes, another 10 minutes here. So let's bang out some of these questions from our audience. Sure. Ryan, Heather, John, see all three of your questions, and we're going to get to these right now. So we're going to start with Ryan. So Ryan says, mind blown, no carbs? Is that the case for 3+ hour workouts with FTP intervals? I've tried to use UCAN exclusively as energy, but I found myself tired about 2.5 hours in and supplementing with Stinger waffles. I use them hoping to lower blood sugar spike due to organic honey. So thanks for the question, Ryan. So first of all, I would say that we want to be very upfront in what we're saying. So when we're talking about a serving of UCAN, we'll say a packet of the UCAN, which is roughly 130 calories. In the context of exercise, we generally say that that serving size is going to last you for about 90 minutes to 2 hours. When you look at a scoop from the tub, it's a little bit of a smaller serving size. So the scoop is 80 calories. The packet is about 120 to 130 calories. So we like to think of a scoop as being good for about an hour, a packet as being good for 90 minutes to 2 hours. So if you were out there training for 2.5 hours, there's certainly, accepted and valid that you may have felt the need to ingest some other fuel. Now, what a lot of people do is, they might take in another serving if you can. So maybe at that 90-minute mark, if you took a packet before, which was going to last you about that 90 minutes to 2 hours, at that 90-minute mark, maybe you just take another 80-calorie scoop of UCAN, and that carries you through the end. Or, like you were doing, some people may say, you know what, UCAN's going to carry me through the first 70 or 80% of my workout. Then if I need to take in a little sugars towards the end of it, that's okay too. We kind of leave that at your discretion. So yeah, I just want to be clear in saying we're not by any means suggesting take UCAN before and it's going to last you, 3-4 hours if you're training hard. You certainly may need to supplement with additional calories and additional carbohydrates. Some people do, some people don't, frankly. That's kind of individual based on your metabolism. But generally speaking, we talk about a serving of UCAN, a packet of UCAN being good for roughly that 90-minute to 2-hour period. So I hope that helped. Karin, anything you might add there to Ryan's question?
Oh, absolutely. And it depends on, what size athlete Ryan is and how fast he metabolizes, how adapted his metabolism is. And sometimes even with metabolic adaptation, we don't know where in the spectrum he is yet. So if I'm working with an athlete like this, typically, and if they're wanting to use UCAN and they're saying, hey, I don't really want to take a honey stinger, or I don't want to take a goo or, shot block or whatever. I want to continue with this kind of steady energy throughout. There's several ways that you can play with it. Sometimes people will feel like the amount of activity that they're doing, and there's such a wide spectrum of different sports and physical activities too, that they might say, okay, well, for this type of physical activity, I'm feeling like my blood sugar is a little low when I take UCAN. And I've had people do that before as well. So if you feel like you're dipping too much, then you can use UCAN with a scoop of protein powder before your workouts. A lot of strength athletes do this, and they feel quite comfortable doing that. It depends how your tolerance is. I personally am one of those people that I can't run with half a banana on board. Like, I have to have something that's a very easily digestible carbohydrate source, and that's one of the reasons why I went to UCAN first, because I heard it wasn't causing GI distress. So I wouldn't be one of those people that could add protein, but maybe you could in order just to keep, the energy steady. The second thing is, it sounds like if you're hitting that wall and not being able to stretch out that one scoop of UCAN or one packet of UCAN, as it were, you can actually increase your UCAN to a couple scoops and see if that works for you. Here's why. So UCAN was developed for an infant that had something called glycogen storage disease. So that meant the parents had to feed this infant every 2 hours in order for the child to survive. And when UCAN was formulated, and here's a picture of Jonah, great kid. I had the chance to meet with him and his family last week. And I asked Jonah, I said, well, these days, and how old is he, Varn? Is he like 12 or 13 now?
14 now. It's amazing. Yeah.
14, my gosh. And, the first time I heard about Jonah and then I see him playing baseball like this, I'm like, how's that even possible? He has this disease and he burns through glycogen like nothing and glucose in his system. So I asked him, I said, hey, Jonah, listen, how do you use UCAN? So he uses UCAN to be able to sleep at night so that he doesn't have to wake up every 2 hours and eat something. Imagine a life like that. It just wouldn't work. So he takes 3 scoops of UCAN. So he's a small little guy. This is obviously when he's younger, but he's still a petite 14-year-old kid. and probably because of his disease state does that for him. But he takes the 3 scoops of UCAN. So if he's doing that and that's lasting him 8 hours to sleep through the night, then Ryan, my guess is that you can probably use 2 scoops of UCAN and see how far it can take you in a workout. Or if you're using a pack of UCAN packet, then try 2 packets and see what that does for you. And if you play with that and it still is like almost there, but not quite yet there for you, play with the amount of protein that you might add with it. Half a scoop before your workout to see if that might get you through. And then I'm going to agree with Varn that if you get to the very end and you're going to do your sprint to the end, or your toughest part of your workout, as it were, at near the end, and you feel like you need something else on board, a faster carb, so be it. You've made it that far without having to need that. And that's what I try and do, is get people as far as they can without ever needing a second source of energy.
Absolutely. And to that point, Karin, sometimes we tell people, hey, carry that along with you as your emergency, and you may need it, you may not,
yeah.
but it kind of keeps you mentally in a good place. So hopefully that helped, Ryan. John and Heather, we see both your questions. So let's answer John's question. I think this is a little bit perhaps simpler and quicker than Heather's question. Then Heather, we'll get to your question next. So John simply wanted to know, as we were talking about the shakes and talking about adding protein to it, what protein supplement you might recommend, Karin, or whether it's a specific one or kind of the characteristics of a good protein that you'd want to pair with UCAN. What would you tell people to look for?
The powders that are out there now are so much better than they were even 5, 10, 15 years ago, where it was chalky, gritty. Who would want to do a protein powder? Now the science behind even the mouthfeel, how it tastes, what are some good, healthy, either sugars for them, they don't put very much sugar in them, but it might be a sugar substitute that might be natural, like a stevia or a monk fruit or something like that, where it keeps the carbohydrate and the sugar load down. And the range of proteins are so much better these days that there's some really good products out there. I look for things that are either NSF certified. This is NSF certified for sport across the lines, whether it's NBA, NHL, NFL, NCAA, they have to be NSF certified. And if it's good enough for them and it just shows that it's a clean third-party tested product, then that's what I would definitely look for. Look for something that's GMP, which is good manufacturing processes. If it's post-workout, definitely go with a whey protein isolate instead of a concentrate. You can get one that's a mix. So if you have a protein powder tub at home and it has some concentrate in it, don't throw it away. It's okay for now. Just know that they put the concentrate in it because it helps to make it taste, the flavor palette taste a little bit better. But for feeding your muscles post-workout, no matter what kind of workout it is, whether it's strength training or endurance training, it should be a whey protein isolate. And past that, as long as it doesn't have a lot of added extra sugars in it and you like it, then go for it. Then take that. I would just add one more thing, which is just watch out for the ones that have a lot of marketing and they throw a lot of extra stuff in it, like 100% of all these different vitamins and minerals, when you really don't need that if you're eating a healthy diet.
Awesome. Great tips, Karin. Heather, let's get to your question. So Heather is a triathlete and a runner. So first she shared some great feedback with us. She said, I'm using UCAN every day and for endurance, and I'm getting my sister just starting out to use it every day and for her first marathon. She has thyroid issues and cannot have sugar spikes. So Heather, that's awesome. We appreciate you recommending it to your family member. Karin, something you were talking about a little bit earlier. And then Heather also shares her experience using UCAN during a marathon. She says, I made it easily to mile 16 on a packet of UCAN for a marathon I was using to qualify for Boston. UCAN did not let me down. I could have had more fuel at mile 14, but at mile 16 I was fine. Only needed 10 miles left and qualified for Boston. Thank you, UCAN. Well, thank you, Heather. That is an awesome story. I'm glad you qualified for Boston. I don't know if it's this year that you're talking about, but if it is, please do come by and visit us at the expo. I'll be there. UCAN will be there. Oh, she said 2018. Well, we'll be there in 2018 as well. So to answer your specific question, Heather, she asked, can you shed light on Ironman level race use of the product? I've used it for half marathons and then for a full, and it was incredible. Ironman Lake Placid will be the first time I'll race a 140.6 with this. So she just wants some perspective on how we recommend using it for that type of long distance activity. So a couple thoughts here, Heather, and then Karin, I'll turn it over to you if you have any additional thoughts. So generally speaking, with UCAN, it kind of changes the paradigm in the sense that most people that are training for these long distance triathlons based on traditional recommendations, might think they need 200, 250 calories per hour or 300 plus calories per hour for some bigger males. And with UCAN, the fueling you're doing is actually far less frequently and you're not taking in as much. And that's twofold. It's A, because the superstarch breaks down very slowly, so it doesn't cause that big spike and drop in blood sugar, like we talked about at length here on the webinar. And a lot of times when you're needing to take in additional fuel during endurance activity, it's not necessarily that your body needs those calories. It's really a blood sugar issue. Your blood sugar drops and you need to take in that next hit of sugary carbohydrate to get it back up. So what you're looking at on the screen is basically our general recommendation for UCAN fueling over any long distance activity. So you want to start with a serving of UCAN, either a packet or scoop, 30 minutes prior. And then, depending on how much you're taking in, you then basically just space that serving out over regular intervals. So we talked about a packet being good for 90 minutes. If you want to take in that packet serving size, then you take it in 30 minutes before. Then once you start your race or your training session, every 90 minutes, you want to take in another serving of UCAN. And one of the ways I tell people to think about this is, think about UCAN as your fuel. It's liquid food. It's not hydration. So even though this is something that you're mixing with water, it's not a sip-on sports drink type of product. It's your food. So I say that because, people have had the most success for fueling for long course activity with UCAN when they're taking that serving in relatively quickly. So when I say taking a serving of UCAN, if you're taking in a packet every 90 minutes, you can get that packet down, say, over the course of 5 or 10 minutes. This is not something you're nursing over the course of an hour. Another thing that triathletes find to be very convenient and easy when they're fueling with UCAN is because of the nature of the superstarch. It's a really really complex, long chain carbohydrate, and it digests very easily. So it passes through your stomach and empties out of your stomach very quickly. Basically, that's a way to say that the amount of fluid you mix a serving of UCAN with does not impact digestion in a negative way. So, for example, you wouldn't be able to take in a 25 gram of sugar, drink mix with only 3 or 4 ounces of water. It would wreak havoc on your stomach, and you need to chase it with a certain amount of fluid. But with the UCAN, you can mix it up very thick and take it down, in that fashion without it messing up your stomach. So from a convenience standpoint, Heather, what a lot of people will do is they'll have 4 or 5 servings of UCAN concentrated in their bike bottle, and then they'll basically know, okay, if this is basically, if I want to take in the equivalent amount that'll give me 90 minutes, of steady energy, then every 90 minutes I'm going to drink a third of that bottle. And then you just treat hydration completely separate. So you basically have your UCAN fuel bottle, which you're consuming a serving at your regular intervals, whether it's a packet every 90 minutes or a scoop every hour if you want to take in less and do it more frequently. And then you have your hydration bottle completely separate that you can just sip on, as needed to keep yourself hydrated. So that's the basic way to get that kind of UCAN in for long course activity. And Heather, you asked about the hydrate picture. Exactly. What you see during the UCAN hydrate box that's being shown in the during column of this graphic is our electrolyte only product. So all of the UCAN mixes with superstarch also contain electrolytes. They have sodium and potassium. But if you're a heavy sweater or you're racing in extreme heat, then like you have in Texas, Karin, certainly I know when the summer months get going there, it's cooking. So a lot of people will just sip on the UCAN hydrate to get additional electrolytes if they are racing in those types of conditions. So that's something that you'll just want to figure out yourself based on your own sweat rate and your own electrolyte needs. But if you are going to supplement with additional electrolytes, we do recommend something like the UCAN hydrate, which doesn't have the sugar. So it's really just giving you the salts, the sodium, potassium, magnesium that your body needs, but it's not giving you the additional sugars which you don't need. So that was a mouthful, Karen, but I know you've used UCAN on long rides. Anything that I didn't add or anything that you do that maybe I didn't highlight?
Well, definitely, I want to say this. I know that we have some amazing resources for long and ultra endurance events and training. And so when I finish what I'm saying, I know, Varn, you probably have something to share as far as where they can find more information on our website and our endurance blog and places like that, where Heather can definitely get some more information.
Absolutely.
For sure, if you have and if you're listening and you happen to be out there and you think of a question later, definitely email us. And so Varn will give you all of that information in a second here. I would say to that, Heather, what I would also recommend is I've noticed just working over the years with triathletes and people that have done Ironman is it's a lot of things that you can do on different legs of that event that you can't do on others. For example, for example, if you're doing a triathlon that you have, you're on the bike. Well, lots of people on the bike really can tolerate different kinds of food sources. So that's where our UCAN bars can help out a lot. And particularly ones that don't have the chocolate on the outside. So that would be like the coffee, the peach flavored one is excellent. The cinnamon, if you can tolerate during your workouts, that's great too. And those would be during your rides, the riding portion. And people have also made a paste or a gel out of the UCAN with small amounts of water. If it's just something that's quicker that they want to get at, and you just have it, mix it up and put it in a snack baggie and kind of rip off the end. And I just love seeing people and what they come up with as far as like containers and things and gels and what they can squeeze out. And then like Varn said, you really want to make sure that your hydration is there separately. So whenever you have any sort of carbohydrate source, even you want to make sure that your hydration is there, because you don't want to bonk because your hydration hasn't been there. So you want to check that as well. And the other thing that I would mention too is that I actually have used UCAN on my long bike rides. I'll usually, when it's season here in Texas, and now it is, thank goodness, couldn't wait, and I do the 40-mile bike rides, what I would do is a scoop of UCAN beforehand before I start my ride, and then I actually mix it in my Camelback. So along with 2 liters of water, I might put in a scoop of UCAN and then the hydrate product, and I mix it all together. And some ice just to keep it cold and my core temperature cool, because like we said, it's hot in Texas. And I actually do sip on it over time, but I think that's also just, for me, a mental thing. Like, I want to know that I had it on board to start out my activity, and I've played with it over the last 6 years. And I just found that even just sipping on it is a really great thing, because if you're like me, once you get out there and the weather's nice and you have some extra time, you're like, hey, maybe I'll just ride 10 extra miles. So having that UCAN on board is really a lifesaver.
Karen, I don't know if you're clairvoyant or if you just saw Ryan's question, because we just had a question from Ryan saying, "Can I nurse it if I have time on the bike?" It's one shot better for some reason. So you were speaking to so Ryan. I mean, you just kind of heard Karen's answer to some of that. You could certainly sip on it as well, but kind of one of the things is, if you've tried UCAN, the product just consistency-wise is a little bit starchy. So we just sometimes say that's a personal preference. For some people, they kind of just like to get it down quickly because it's a little bit starchy in consistency. For others, like Karin, if you're kind of taking it before and then also making a little bit more of a diluted concentration to sip on, then that can also work well. So in terms of what we know about the science of the superstarch carbohydrate, in the graph and the data that we were showing you before, this is really the way the carbohydrate reacts when you're taking in, a serving, a dose of it at once, and then it breaks down slowly over time. So many people have reported to us sipping on it during a marathon, sipping on it during a bike ride, like Karen's saying, and told us they've still had very great success with it in terms of UCAN's ability to maintain their energy levels. Now, what I would say is, in most cases, we've heard of people sipping on it. They're also taking a full serving of UCAN before. So like you heard Karin talk about in the example, she's still fueling up with that scoop of UCAN before her 40-mile ride that's keeping her steady. And then additionally, she's able to take in a little bit more that she's sipping on during the ride to keep her in that steady state. So I'd say by all means, if that's working well for you, keep doing it. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way. We're just kind of providing the recommendations that we see most people doing with UCAN. Well,
sure.
with that, Karin, I think we've reached the end of our time and we've reached the end of our questions. I really appreciate the participation from the audience today. These things are only as valuable and as good to everybody as the questions are from the audience. So Ryan, Mary Jane, Heather, all of you guys who shared your experiences and your questions, it's very much appreciated. As we wrap it up, Karin, anything you want to leave folks here in the audience with? Any one or two key takeaways, kind of based on what we've talked about today?
Well, I absolutely do, because number one, I didn't congratulate Heather on qualifying for Boston. That's a huge deal. And there's lots of people listening who are overcoming and reaching even their daily goals. So what I would really love is if you got something good out of this webinar today, if you could tweet us, post on social media, Facebook, wherever you'd like, with hashtag UCAN, that would be great. Give us some love. Let other people know how UCAN's been working for you in your life. Send us your questions. So again, Barnes going to tell you where to find more resources for endurance, and also I am focusing so heavily on the fitness side so that I can bring you guys information on how power lifters, group fitness soccer moms, like how everybody's using UCAN, not just for our amazing endurance athletes and the success that we've had with UCAN on that side, but for everyday people. So I just really want to hear from all of you, whether it's through social media or your emails to us, on how it's working or questions that you have. Please use this as a starting off point to contact us.
Awesome, Karin. And Heather just had one quick one for you before we get out of here. Favorite UCAN Hydrate flavor, berry or lemon?
Oh, you know what, berry.
Berry, yep, that seems to be the favorite. And you know what, actually, I do, even though we're just about to sign up, because this question is perhaps non-endurance related and aligned on what we were talking about today, just want to give a chance to put David's question out there. David says, with respect to weight training, is the UCAN protein product good, or is it more for endurance sports, given that it doesn't have as much protein, et cetera, as a traditional protein powder? So the UCAN product with protein, just to set the scene for everybody, this has 30 grams, a packet of our superstarch carbohydrate, and 13 grams of protein. So roughly that 2-to-1 carbohydrate to protein ratio. Karin, what would you say to David's question in regards to this product for weight training?
There's some really good evidence out there, even better than good, just really sound evidence out there that's shown us that even a little bit of protein before a strength training bout is really good for you. So, and it will help to augment your muscle gains, and that's what every person who's weightlifting is looking for. I weight train myself about 4 days per week, and I would say that particular product with the 13 grams of protein in it would be perfect for before your workout. So that's exactly when I would use UCAN with protein, is before your strength workout. Now, if you happen to be someone who is a runner, and I've had plenty of people coming to me that say, you know what, I run marathons, but I need to lose 30 pounds. And I wish that I could lose the weight, and I'm struggling to do it, then that product that's UCAN plus protein, as it is the 13 grams, you can do that 2-to-1 ratio after your long run and to your training runs, for example. So you don't have to use it just after a marathon. You use it after your training runs to keep your blood sugar in check, absorb the protein that you need, but still stay in that fat burning state. So those are kind of two different ways that you might use it, depending on if you're an endurance or weightlifting athlete.
And then for somebody like David, if he's using it, with in the sense of for weightlifting, and he's looking for a post-workout option to gain mass, he could simply, as we were talking about before, just add additional protein, a scoop of any other protein powder to the UCAN, because David, in that sense, you'd still be getting the benefit of the superstarch to keep your blood sugar steady, as well as getting the benefits of the protein, and the additional protein for muscular, repair and to also help you add mass. And then, yeah, exactly, David, you're asking, he says you have the tub, 7 grams of protein per scoop. So just 2 scoops. That's exactly right. So with the UCAN
Yep.
protein products, 2 scoops equals 1 packet. With the flavors without the protein, a scoop and a half equals 1 packet. And as we were kind of teasing out this new product off the top, that is, David, for somebody like yourself who is looking for a higher protein UCAN formulation because you may be using it in the context of strength training. That is exactly why we're so excited about this new UCAN protein product that's just a few months down the line, which will be a higher, so a 20 gram of protein versus 15 grams of superstarch combination. So there again, you'll be getting the benefits of the steady energy from superstarch, but you'll be getting more of the protein if that's something that you're interested in. So with that, I just really, great questions. I really love seeing when we have a diversity of, triathletes, runners, people using it for weight training. It's really great when the audience is kind of allowing us to highlight the different applications of UCAN. And of course, Karin, I couldn't do this without you, the brains of this operation. So I want to thank you for joining us today, Karin, and really, really excited for all you folks on the line. You're going to be hearing a lot more from Karin. Like I said, she's just got so much experience and so much knowledge working with all different types of individuals. So we couldn't be more excited to have her as an asset on the UCAN team. And hopefully you guys liked what you had to hear from Karin. Please do share some love with us on social media if you liked what you had to hear today. You'll also be getting a full recording of this webinar in just a short time, along with a very special offer. So I know some of you folks were ready to order today. I would say sit tight for just a few minutes and you will be able to enhance your ordering experience. I will leave it at that. But for Karin, for Varn here, I just want to thank everybody for joining us and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.